everyone. Hello and welcome to July 29 Eclipses broadcast, critical dates and degrees that you're going to want to know moving into the July 2019 eclipse season. I'm Phaedra. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystic Physick Astrology, and I use Western Sidereal Astrology in my practice, and really it's to kind of help provide guidance for you on how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. So you're going to want to be working with your 𝘊 sidereal natal chart on today's broadcast. But thanks for joining me on this live stream. We're going to cover the upcoming eclipse season with an eye towards how to know whether you'll be personally affected, whether that effect is going to be challenging or easier to kind of accommodate into your life, and what dates you're going to want to keep an eye on in the coming months, but also in the coming year if you're directly affected by the 2019 eclipse season. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm just going to refresh the browser window here real quick before we get started so that I can pull up the comments for live viewers joining us. That way I don't have to try to worry about keeping track of them on the phone where I'm broadcasting from. So here we go. If you don't have your sidereal natal chart, let me see if I have a link handy. Usually I do. This is not my normal broadcast, so maybe I don't. You'll want to go to mysticphysick.com/sidereal tools to plug in your birth data and find out for free. Let's see if I can get this in here quickly enough. We spell everything right? mysticphysick.com/sidereal tools. I think that works. If not, we'll fix it. Anyway, you're going to want to look up your natal chart today because we're going to be looking at specific degrees and specific signs. And so you're going to want to know if you have planets or points in those locations. So if you need a more in-depth exploration about eclipses, how they work in our lives, how to navigate them, how they affect us, there's another video that I've done that you can watch. It's called 3 Important Eclipse Essentials That You Need to Know. I would really recommend taking the time to watch that, especially if you haven't already. Let me get back into the comments here, and I will include this in the video description. I'll go back and edit it, and that way if anyone needs that. There I talk more about eclipses in general, but we get very in-depth about how we experience them, what eclipse cycles are like, how they turn up in our lives, how eclipses manifest in our experience by transit especially. And so I'd really recommend give yourself a refresher, watch that broadcast. Today's broadcast, what we're going to be doing is just kind of doing like a really brief recap of eclipses in general, and then we're going to drill into the July 2nd and July 16th eclipses coming up this year in terms of what dates, what degrees, what signs, how you might be affected. And then as we get closer to those actual eclipses, we'll start having more in-depth conversations about each individual eclipse, the July 2nd one, the July 16th one, and the nature of those eclipses specifically and how they may manifest for us. But that way you have a link to the Eclipse Essentials video if you need a recap. In that one I cover how they can affect you, how to determine if any given eclipse is going to affect you directly, and how to figure out how and why you'll be affected. And so that's just kind of a helpful general overview. But I'd like to invite you to please like and share the broadcast. Tag a friend if you know someone who might be interested in watching this broadcast today. You can also follow us on Facebook and be sure to subscribe to the Mystic Physick Astrology YouTube channel. But let's talk about these particular eclipses coming up in July. And like I said, we're using the 𝘊 sidereal zodiac. Oh, look, there's my link that I could have copied and pasted for you right there in my notes. So our short recap while you're pulling up your eclipse, or your birth charts with that particular chart calculator. So eclipses happen in 18 to 24 month long cycles in pairs of signs, right? By the 𝘊 sidereal zodiac, we are now fully within the Gemini Sagittarius series that began last July 12th and is going to end coming up in July 2020. So we had a little bit of overlap when this eclipse series began and the Cancer Capricorn series ended. The Cancer Capricorn series, we had our final eclipse in that series in January. And so by and large, the effects of that previous series will have run their course, and we will have for the most part, accepted or adapted to the changes that they brought by the time we come through April, considering that most eclipses have an effect for up to 2 months before and after, a 60-day window before and after the actual eclipse date. So we've come out of that window. We may still see the sun transiting degrees related to that eclipse series as we're coming through April, maybe even into May. But for the most part, that series is done, and we're in in Sagittarius to Gemini series. And so you'll want to be specifically looking at the axis in your natal chart where you have the Gemini Sagittarius axis. Okay, so eclipse season always brings a lot of change. That's the unavoidable part about it, and it can be through new beginnings, it can be through endings. It's strongest, those changes are strongest felt by those of us who have a planet or personal point near the eclipse degree, okay? Now, we can still be affected if the eclipse falls in our sun sign or our rising sign, even if we don't share a degree with the eclipse, with a planet or point in our personal chart, okay? The change that eclipses bring typically is tied to events that are beyond our ability to control. So we can only accommodate the changes in our lives that eclipses bring, either willingly or unwillingly. So you can either accommodate them with acceptance or with resistance, right? And eclipses, it's important to note that they're many, many times stronger than a regular new or full moon, okay? So they function in the same way, but they're many, many times stronger, and they can activate the sign and house opposite from the sign and house in which they occur, okay? Eclipses are notorious for exposing what's hidden from your awareness. That includes secrets, right? And they bring to light essential information that you need. And so typically we would recommend that you hold off making a major decision or making a major initiation around an eclipse because things are in a state of flux. Information that you may need is not available to you, but it may be made available to you. So wait until after you have that information to make your decision or to take action, because it could influence ultimately the direction you decide to go or what action you decide to take. So that's what's important to keep in mind about eclipses. It's about every 6 months we are entering this type of situation, because that's how frequently they happen in pairs, usually in pairs, sometimes in threes, about every 6 months. But like I said, go watch the Eclipse Essentials video. I get into more detail specifically about eclipses in that video. Right now, we're going to look at particular dates and degrees you want to check in your chart. So you want to have your sidereal natal chart handy, a pen, and your planner, maybe even. I'm looking at my planner right here. If you have a planning calendar, if you have your ultimate astrological planner, you might want to grab that, your day planner, whatever you use to keep appointments in. Because if you're affected, if you're seeing these degrees be activated, there's some dates that you're going to want to keep track of, not only in the coming weeks and months, but going into the middle of next year. So July 2nd, 2019, we have our first eclipse of July. This is the new moon solar eclipse in sidereal Gemini. It's at 15 degrees 37 minutes. So you'll want to be looking at air and fire signs in your chart. Look for a planet or personal point at 15 or 16 degrees of Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, or Sagittarius, Aries, or Leo, the air and fire signs, okay? The dates that you're going to want to be aware of. 30th of April, so coming up. This is why we're having this conversation now. Okay, so we'll do this video early. You may want to refer back to it as we come through the next couple of months in navigating eclipse season. So the very first date where this eclipse is going to be active is around the 30th of April. We're hitting the 60-day window leading into the July 2nd eclipse. And so a small percentage of folks may see some sort of eclipse news come their way in the days around April 30th. So just in a few days here, May 4th. The dates that we're talking about here are the dates that the luminaries are going to be transiting the eclipse degree. Okay, so they'll be in a different sign, but they'll be transiting 15 to 16 degrees of a neighboring sign. 1st and 2nd of June. Okay, so note those dates as well. The 2nd of July and the 31st of July. So the very beginning and the end of the month. The 2nd of August. The 30th of August, and the 2nd and 3rd of September. And I didn't think about this in advance of the broadcast. I apologize. We did have to reschedule. We had some tight time frames for getting all the material together. I'll see about making like a little downloadable, maybe like a PDF or something that you can download that'll have all these dates and degree information like right on it. And that way, if you don't want to have to write them down, if you just want to print something out or have a document on your computer or on your phone, that way you'll have it. We'll see about doing some cutting and pasting here after the broadcast. If you have Gemini sun or rising, a planet or point at 15 or 16 degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces, experiences that are brought up by the July 2nd eclipse this year are likely to be more challenging. They may be more difficult to accommodate and make room for in your life. However, they're much more likely to bring you greater growth and learning potential. Okay? So, planet or point, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces at 15 or 16 degrees. This will be a more challenging eclipse, July 2nd. Okay? The eclipse degree is going to be reactivated for you if you have a planet or point at one of those, or a planet or point at 15 or 16 degrees at one of those signs. It'll be reactivated for you at the new moons in July and October of this year, and the new moons in January, April, and July of next year. Okay? So this will be when the new moons reactivate the July 2nd eclipse for you personally if you're affected by this eclipse. Okay, those are the new moons you want to keep an eye on because they will re-trigger issues around whatever this eclipse brings up for you. Okay? If you have a planet or personal point at 15 or 16 degrees of Leo, Libra, Aquarius, or Aries, this will likely be a less challenging eclipse for you, but it may require a much more conscious effort and much more conscious action on your part if you want to use the eclipse energy for an initiation or to affect a permanent change in your life. When we're experiencing a sextile or a trine to a particular eclipse, the energy is flowing pretty easily, but we actually have to be a lot more proactive to really make the most use of it. The energy flow happens anyway, but if you're not really conscious about it, you don't necessarily use it to its full potential as it manifests. And so that can be one of the drawbacks of having easy aspects in a chart, whether by transit or even natally. Sometimes we are not as challenged to develop them as we could be. If you have, let's see, a planet or personal point at 15 or 16 degrees of one of those signs, Leo, Libra, Aquarius, or Aries, the eclipse degree will be reactivated for you at the new moons in September and November of 2019, and again at the new moons in March and May of 2020. Okay? So that is the July 2nd eclipse. This is a new moon solar eclipse in Sidereal Gemini at 15 degrees. So the next eclipse in our July eclipse series is the July 16th eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius at 29 degrees 3 minutes. Okay, so with that particular eclipse, the full moon lunar eclipse, you're going to want to check your fire and air signs again. So look for a planet or point at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, Leo, Aries, Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. Planets or points within plus or minus 4 or 5 degrees of either side is really kind of what we're looking at when we're talking about eclipses. Okay, although the effect is going to be stronger the closer they are, right? We know that. That's orb work. That's how orbs work. So the July 16th, 2019 eclipse news could be delivered at any of the following dates: 14th and 15th of May, 2019, the 18th of May, so not too far away, a couple weeks out, the 15th and 16th of June, 16th of July, the 15th of August, the 17th of August, the 13th and 14th of September, and then finally the 17th of September. Those are the dates for our July 16th eclipse. So if you have Sagittarius sun or Sagittarius rising or planet or point at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, or Pisces, experiences that are brought up by the July 16th eclipse will be more challenging, right? Like we talked about just a moment ago, and likely bring greater potential for growth and for learning, and for really moving forward in a way that benefits you, okay? The eclipse degree will be reactivated for you in that case at the full moons in July and October of this year, and at the full moons in January, April, and July of next year. Okay, so those will be the full moons that you want to keep an eye on. And then if you have a planet or point at 29 degrees of Aries, Leo, Libra, or Aquarius, this will likely be somewhat less challenging of an eclipse for you in terms of that planetary experience, right? You might be being touched in multiple ways by either of these or any eclipse. So it's important to kind of look at how that chart dynamic is working for you in a holistic fashion, right? But if you have a planet or personal point at 29 degrees of Aries, Leo, Libra, or Aquarius, the July 16th eclipse, you'll want to be more conscious and you'll want to be more proactive about how you put that to work. And full moons typically are times when we want to be finishing things, right, or bringing things to a conclusion. So be thinking about how would you want to leverage that? Is there something that you started, say, 6 months ago when we had our last new moon here, that you would like to be bringing to the end of a particular stage? You could do that, but where you're going to have this eclipse in sextile or trine to that particular planet or point, in this case, you'd have to make a little more effort to really capitalize on the full moon, July 16th eclipse, okay? So the eclipse degree, will be reactivated for you at the full moons in September and November 2019, and again at the full moons in March and May of 2020. If you have a planet or personal point at 29 degrees of Aries, Leo, Libra, or Sagittarius. And then finally, if you have a planet or point, this is the one thing that I want you to kind of keep in mind of. If you have a planet or point within plus or minus 5 degrees of any of those eclipses, or making a major aspect with an eclipse within plus or minus 3 degrees or so. Okay, when I talk about major aspect, I'm talking particularly about the Ptolemaic aspects, right? Pay attention to the relevant dates for events to happen. Make note. If you keep a journal or if you keep a planner, sometimes it can be helpful to make note of major events when they happen. You'll also want to watch the new and full moons that we noted for the coming 12 months when the relevant eclipse is reactivated for you, because further developments will come to light at those times and they will be significant for you. That's what we have going on. You're going to want to keep in mind the fact that some of us will be starting to feel the earliest effects of these eclipses as we move into May, and that will build as we get closer to the actual eclipse dates in July. And then there will be folks who are still affected coming out the other side of the eclipses in the 2 months following the July eclipse season. So for more information, like I was saying, on how that works, check out the Eclipse Essentials video that I posted a link to. Join me also Friday coming up, Friday, May 3rd, for the new moon in Sidereal Aries intention setting practice in the Sidereal Insights community here on Facebook. You can join us live at 7:30 Mountain Daylight Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This is 2:30 in the morning if you're on British Standard Time, May 4th, as a matter of fact, or 1:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on May 4th if you're joining us all the way from Australia. But like I said, join us for that. We'll do our new moon in Sidereal Aries intention setting. That's going to be kind of fun, like the brand new start of something fresh. I'm excited. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't ever miss a broadcast. And I will do my best to kind of reshare this and repost and send you reminders with this information attached as we come to these dates that we have talked about in this broadcast, so that you can be using the information in a timely manner as we navigate the coming July eclipses. And thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate having you on the broadcast. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to add, please do so in the comments below. Thanks, and we'll see you again next time.